Hi, it's Kip Innovates here, and in today's video I'm going to start by talking a bit about mushrooms, and then I'm going to move on to privacy of citizens and financial issues. So make sure you watch through to the end. To start with, I thought I would describe one of the laws that Finland has that guarantees the right for citizens to roam around in the forests picking mushrooms and berries. It's an unusual law to somebody coming from England, because in England 99.9% of land is privately owned, and there's this thin web of public highways or public footpaths that you're allowed to roam on, but the rest of the forests and wilderness out there, or what is left in the UK anyway, is privately owned, and going on there means that you're trespassing. In Finland, on the other hand, the everyman rights enshrine in law the right for individual Finns to go into the forest, no matter who owns it, to wander around, to pick mushrooms, berries, wood that's fallen on the ground. You can even camp, as long as you do not leave any traces behind. And the only restriction is that you're not allowed within a certain distance of private dwellings. I think it's about 100 meters or so. And that means that the vast forests across Finland are free for anybody to go and explore. And I happen to think this is a wonderful thing. And one of the results of this is that in the autumn, you can go and help yourself to all the berries and mushrooms that you can find in the forests. So that's something that me and my kids do a lot. And over the years, I've learned a bit about identifying mushrooms, which is a great way to connect with nature. So, for example, here, I found a patch of chanterelles. So they're growing quite happily here in the moss. And the chanterelle is probably my favorite mushroom. It's got a distinct color and distinct gill pattern, and has a sort of slight apricot-y smell to it. In French it's called a girole. In German it's a pfifferling. Maybe that's because it's got a slight peppery taste when eaten raw, and you shouldn't eat them raw. But cooked, they're absolutely delicious. They're sometimes described as the queen of the mushrooms. So I'll pick those up later and have them for my lunch. If I move further along here, here's another mushroom. These are, I don't know if you can see them yet. Yes, there we are. These are woolly milk caps. So the books that I have say that you shouldn't eat these because they can cause stomach upsets, but the Finns do seem to eat them. They blanch them first and then pickle them and salt them, and have them use them in cooking soups and things like that. And they're called milk caps because when you crack open the mushroom, I don't know if you're probably not going to be able to see that here, they exude a sort of white, milky, latex-like substance. I avoid these, even though Finns assure me that they are edible. I don't think they taste particularly good, and I don't want to take the risk of having an upset stomach. So let's see what else we can see around here. Okay, here's a third edible mushroom. This is a, get it in focus. This is a birch bolete. It's a rather small specimen. Boletes are mushrooms that don't have gills on the bottom. They have pores, so they're very easy to identify. And there's only one poisonous variant called Satan's boletus, and that one is really easy to identify because it's sort of got a red, lurid color. This has got a brick orange color. I prefer the edible bolete, or the cep. In Italian it's called porcini. This one's okay, and it's really easy to identify because you've got this distinctive orange cap. It's not got gills, it's got pores, and the stem looks like it's covered in soot. So there we go, that's a third edible mushroom. Now, another interesting thing about Finland, beyond the everyman rights that allow you to roam through these forests without let or hindrance, I think would be the legal term, is that anything that you forage from the forest, berries, such as blueberries, foxberries, cloudberries and stuff like that, and edible mushrooms, can be collected and sold without you having to pay tax on them or declare the income. So that is a very unusual financial right. You don't normally see that in Europe. And that means that teenagers can go out and pick bucket loads of blueberries, for example, and then they can sell them and collect the money, and they don't have to declare it on their tax form. It's all cash in hand, no questions asked, no problem. Again, that's legally guaranteed. Now, that brings me on to the financial part of this video, which is I imagine that organizations such as the Financial Actions Task Force, the European Central Bank, the Bank of International Settlements and so on, are probably not very happy with this. We've seen over the years that there's been more and more clamping down on the financial activities of private citizens, to the point that just today I read a couple of articles about how Swiss teenagers wanting to put their pocket money in their bank accounts are required to tell the bank the source of origin of these funds. So we're talking about kids here putting the equivalent of 10 euros or 20 euros in a bank account, having to explain where they got the money from. And presumably they all just answer, got it from my mum or my dad, and that's that. But still, it is a bit intrusive, I would say. And similarly, in Australia, if you try to withdraw money in the form of cash from your bank, the bank is legally required to ask you what the purpose of the funds is. What are you going to spend the money on? Now, all of this is done under the auspices of preventing terrorism and preventing money laundering. But quite frankly, I fail to see how querying 16-year-olds where they got 10 or 20 euros from is going to help in that activity. I think this is described in the computer security world as the theatre of security, taking actions that give the appearance that you're doing something to make the world a safer place, but in actual fact they are completely ineffective. And those among us who are a bit more inclined towards seeing conspiracies and things will see this as an attempt to impose more and more control on individual citizens through the financial system. So firstly, I guess we'll have to wait and see how long Finland's right to collect mushrooms and berries and sell them without having to go through all the taxation and declaration of income stuff lasts. I imagine that the EU will put pressure on Finland over time to clamp down on that, because that's the way that our financial systems are going. And I guess the second point is that we all need to start keeping an eye on how things are going on here. I was going to make a video about central bank digital currencies and the idea of our cash becoming programmable, which in that context is probably a euphemism for controlled and surveyed. I'm not somebody who is in favor of money laundering or terrorist activities, but I can't help thinking that the kind of restrictions and regulations that they are talking about bringing in under the auspices of preventing these activities have a lot in common with the banning of books to protect our children. That's another area where censorship, because this activity that I'm talking about does amount to financial censorship, is brought in under the guise of one reason that you can't really argue against, and nobody is going to say, well, I think our kids should be corrupted, or I think that terrorists should be allowed to move funds around freely. But as a result, we all get impacted, and then we end up with a world where millions and millions of people have to take off their shoes to get onto an airplane because one guy failed to blow up a bomb that he had in his shoe 20 years ago. And I don't know about you, but to be honest, it's not really the kind of world that I would like to live in, but it looks like that's the way the current is flowing. I guess we'll just have to see, and hopefully there is something we as individuals can do about it to keep it sane and sensible, but at the moment I'm not holding up too much hope. Anyway, nice depressing end to this video, isn't it? I hope you enjoyed it nevertheless, and see you in the next video soon. Bye for now.